are people in this hostile anti-Black administration that would rather Black Americans pick cotton than pick the president, than pick...
Stop scrolling right now. Did an elected official really just say they want people back picking cotton? You will not believe the sheer panic happening on camera today.
Person, then pick a senator. They want the representatives to decide who their voters are, instead of the voters determining who their representatives.
Wait, did you catch that? Look at the sheer level of escalation happening right now. You've got an elected official standing at a podium and straight up telling a crowd that the administration wants them out in the fields picking cotton. Think about the psychological weight of dropping a line like that in modern politics. It's not just a passing comment. It's a carefully calculated phrase designed to trigger massive emotional shockwaves. Why throw something so extreme out there? Because fear drives absolute loyalty. When you push the stakes to an absolute extreme, logic completely flies out the window and raw survival instinct kicks in. Notice the absolute conviction in her voice, too. There's zero hesitation. They know exactly what kind of historical trauma that phrase taps into, and they are using it as a direct weapon to mobilize a base that might otherwise be losing interest. It's a masterclass in panic button politics. The question you have to ask yourself is, how far are we willing to let rhetoric escalate before the rubber band snaps? If this is the baseline for political debate right now, what does the ceiling look like next year?
Those who try to destroy Trump politically, stand in the way of his agenda, are going to lose. Bill made a decision. What would LBJ do? Is it natural for a politician to go after people who try to destroy their political life? So Bill Cassidy's lost because he tried to destroy Trump. Massey's going to lose because he's trying to destroy the agenda. You can disagree with President Trump, but if you try to destroy him, you're going to lose because this is the party of Donald Trump.
Look at the guy dropping the absolute hammer on national television. Senator Lindsey Graham is sitting there, completely calm, practically sipping his coffee, and sending a ruthless, mafia-style warning to his own party. Did you hear the absolute finality in his voice? If you try to destroy him, you're going to lose. This isn't just an observation. It is a public execution of Bill Cassidy's political career being used as a warning sign for everyone else. Look closely at his body language. There is zero sympathy. He actually smiled right before twisting the knife. He's laying out the new absolute law of the land. You can disagree on policy, but if you go after the boss, you are entirely finished. This is the exact moment the old Republican establishment officially threw in the towel and admitted defeat. They aren't even trying to hide the power dynamics anymore. It's a complete structural takeover, and he's basically daring anyone else to step out of line and see what happens. It's wild to see political Darwinism happening in high definition.
Let them know exactly what they have uncorked with this injustice.
Hold up, just listen to the absolute theater of this moment. You've got AOC on a stage, projecting her voice like she's starring in a Broadway historical drama, calling for the North to pull up to the South. Notice the very specific cadence she is using. She's intentionally mirroring the rhythm and tone of a 1960s civil rights icon. It's highly produced emotional engineering. But listen to the core threat wrapped up in that delivery. The sleeping giant that they just awakened. This is pure mobilization strategy. She is actively trying to frame a legal ruling as a geographic and cultural war, pulling people from New York all the way down to Mississippi. By tying current election laws to the Great Society and historical disenfranchisement, she isn't just asking for votes, she is demanding a literal migration of activists. It is brilliant and terrifying at the exact same time. The crowd is eating out of the palm of her hand because she knows exactly how to weaponize historical nostalgia and turn it into a modern-day call to action.
If you're bragging about forcing out career prosecutors and agents because the president doesn't like a lawful investigation they conducted, something is seriously broken at the top. But I have great confidence in the people down below who are just trying to hang on. And I'm urging them, hang on. 2.5 years.
Are you actually hearing what's being said out loud right now? Former FBI Director James Comey is literally going on broadcast media and giving a direct set of marching orders to career government employees. He isn't even trying to be subtle about it. He is directly telling federal agents and prosecutors to hang on and wait out the storm so they can rebuild these institutions in 2.5 years. Just think about the implications of that. You have a former intelligence chief openly coordinating a slow-roll resistance from within the system. Notice how he frames it as a noble sacrifice, good people in those roles. He is explicitly confirming what people have been whispering about for years, the idea that there is an active, entrenched bureaucratic layer operating entirely on its own timeline, regardless of who is sitting in the Oval Office. It is a stunning admission of institutional entrenchment. He's essentially telling the permanent state to dig their heels into the dirt and ignore the current administration. You rarely ever catch them saying the quiet part out loud like this.
We know that this is a racist Supreme Court. We know that the President of the United States is afraid that we're going to take back the majority. So we're not being naive. We know he's going to come after us with every illegal, unlawful thing that...
Pause for a second and really process the sheer magnitude of the claim being dropped right here. Calling the highest court in the land racist and explicitly accusing the sitting administration of preparing to do every illegal, unlawful thing imaginable is a complete tactical nuke on public trust. Notice the absolute certainty in her delivery. We know this. There is no allegedly, there is no in my opinion. She is directly programming the audience to preemptively reject any future legal or political outcome as fundamentally corrupt. This is a fascinating strategy because it entirely removes the need to argue policy. If you convince your base that the entire system is built on racism and illegality, then you never have to actually debate the specifics of a court ruling or a piece of legislation. It's an ideological kill switch. By painting the opposition as a cartoon-level villain who will break every law, it gives her side total moral justification to do absolutely whatever it takes to win. The groundwork for total institutional delegitimization is being laid right in front of our eyes.
I'm here because I know very consciously I'm the descendant of slaves in this country.
Take a close look at the emotional weight being deployed here. Senator Cory Booker isn't just giving a speech, he is actively trying to forge a massive emotional link between modern judicial rulings and the darkest eras of American history. He immediately invokes his ancestors, Dred Scott and Japanese internment camps in the exact same breath. Think about how strategically heavy that is. He is intentionally collapsing the timeline, making the crowd feel like they are literally fighting the exact same battles from a century ago. Listen to the phrase civic altar call. That is a deeply religious, almost spiritual framing of a political rally. He knows the crowd he's speaking to, and he knows that if he can elevate this from a standard policy dispute into a cosmic battle between good and evil, the energy will be unstoppable. It's an incredibly effective psychological anchor. By tying a modern Supreme Court decision directly to systemic historical trauma, he makes any opposition seem fundamentally evil. It is a highly sophisticated, emotionally charged strategy designed to override any logical counter-argument.
I've been able to participate in democracy. And when you participate in democracy, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. But you don't pout, you don't whine, you don't claim the election was stolen, you don't find a reason why.
Wow, look at the complete exhaustion radiating off of him. This is the face of a guy who just watched a 2-decade political career vanish into thin air, and he is delivering an incredibly pointed exit interview. Did you catch the specific phrasing? You don't pout, you don't whine, you don't claim the election was stolen. That isn't just a graceful bow out, that is a direct, undeniable shot fired straight at the current leadership of his own party. He is drawing a massive line in the sand on his way out the door. Notice how tight his posture is. He's holding on to his pride, refusing to bend the knee even in defeat. He is desperately trying to remind everyone what the old standard of political decorum used to look like, knowing full well that nobody in that room probably cares anymore. It is a lonely, isolated stand. He knows the wave has completely crashed over him, and this is his final, defiant way of saying that he refuses to be dragged down to the new behavioral baseline. It is a fascinating psychological goodbye.
We are here in the birthplace of the civil rights movement on, as one of the preachers said, sacred ground soaked in prayer, tears, and blood, to make it clear to the American people that we are not going back.
Check out the heavy use of elemental imagery happening right here. Sacred ground soaked in prayer, tears, and blood. That is not just a political soundbite. That is a deliberate, mythological level of storytelling. Rep. Stansberry is actively trying to anoint this entire movement with a sense of untouchable, holy righteousness. Notice how she uses the phrase, "we are not going back." It is designed to act as an impenetrable verbal shield. If you challenge her position, you aren't just disagreeing on a legal redistricting map, you are literally trampling on the blood and tears of civil rights martyrs. That is an incredibly aggressive conversational checkmate. You literally cannot debate someone who has framed their argument as a sacred religious truth. Look at the intensity in her eyes. She is demanding absolute moral submission from the audience. This is exactly how you bypass the logical brain and tap directly into the deeply ingrained primal tribalism of a crowd. It's powerful, it's unyielding, and it completely shuts down any possibility of a nuanced middle ground conversation.
I mean that Democrats don't have to do the work, but I think it shows you that the Republican Party is organized less and less around conservative principles, more and more around one man. And as that one man remains deeply unpopular, they're having a very hard time convincing the rest of America to vote for them, which is why they're spending less time convincing their voters.
Listen to the incredibly polished spin happening in real time. This strategist is going on national television and performing a flawless psychological projection campaign. He is attempting to dissect the opposition party, diagnosing them as a group completely divorced from their core principles and blindly following a deeply unpopular single figure. But notice the total lack of self-awareness, or perhaps the absolute brilliance of the deflection. He is calmly diagnosing the exact vulnerabilities that critics often point out about his own side of the aisle. Look at his perfectly practiced, calm demeanor. He wants to project an image of the adult in the room, looking down at a chaotic mess. It is a classic superiority play. By framing the opponent as an extreme, cult-like faction that is alienating the rest of America, he is desperately trying to build a permission structure for moderate voters to jump ship. It's entirely calculated. He knows that if he repeats the phrase "extreme candidates" enough times, it eventually becomes a permanent, sticky label in the minds of the undecided audience.
Black Americans, Black voters about this redistricting.
The Supreme Court issued a long-awaited opinion, and I think it was long overdue, and they stated the obvious that drawing congressional lines must be fair. You cannot draw lines on the basis of race, and that's what was done in Louisiana. So they declared it to be an unconstitutional gerrymander, and it was.
Notice the absolute jarring contrast in energy here. After all the intense shouting, historical comparisons, and emotional fireworks from the rallies, Speaker Mike Johnson comes on and sounds like a guy reading the terms and conditions of a software update. He is speaking at an incredibly low, steady volume, using totally clinical language like unconstitutional gerrymander and certainty to the system. This is a very deliberate tactical choice. He is intentionally refusing to match the emotional pitch of the opposition. By staying completely monotone and boring, he is trying to drain all the heat out of the controversy. He wants to frame the entire explosive situation as just a standard, dry, administrative correction. Look at how entirely unbothered he appears. If the other side is trying to start a raging fire, he is throwing a giant bucket of bureaucratic sand on it. It's actually a very shrewd defensive maneuver. When your opponents are screaming at the top of their lungs, sometimes the most disruptive thing you can do is speak in a calm, completely emotionless whisper. This whole situation is spiraling fast. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next breakdown.